and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome you to this, the 18th of February planning and zoning meeting. I will ask that if you have your cell phones, please turn them to silence, so the courtesy of all of us in here. I would like to ask if some of you are new to here to the planning and zoning committee and haven't been before. We have a policy that every agenda item has 10 minutes per side to speak. So if you'll see, we have a time clock, and we try to strictly adhere to that. So if you're signed up to speak for or against, once it's on, for or against an item, remember there may be somebody behind you who would like to speak as well. And you have a total of 10 minutes. With that, I'd like to bring this meeting to order, and we will begin by having invocation from Mr. Charles Chandler.
Father God, we do thank you for this day and for the many blessings you poured out on our city, our county, our state, and our country. Father, we do pray for the leaders of each of those governmental agencies, and we ask for wisdom as we meet tonight, that you would guide this board to do what is right and best for all concerned. Father, we pray for those who are going through tough times, and we know that many in Tennessee and Kentucky with the rains and floods yesterday are again going through tough times, and we lift them up and ask for your wisdom as people minister to them. Bless this meeting and bless us as we go home, and protect us in Jesus' name. Amen. You pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We will begin our meeting with the approval or amendment of the minutes from the December meeting.
Motion.
Motion to approve from Mr. Lane, is there a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Bath, all those in favor?
Aye.
Minutes are approved as written. First item on the agenda. Rebecca Brown has submitted an application to rezone approximately 5.15 acres from R40 to Ag 5 for the purpose of placing a manufactured home on the property. The property is located at 2911 Lily Creek Road, and Ms. Brown will be acting as agent tonight, is that correct? Yes. Mr. Pope?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This item, as stated, is a rezone request for 5.15 acres. Approximate location is at the north end of the county, just near 301, or off 301, as shown here. Lily Creek Road was is a paved county maintained subdivision road, local road. I'm not sure at what point the zoning was changed for this parcel. But as you can see here, there are Ag 5 zone properties within this neighborhood. The adjacent parcel, which would be just to the south of this, was recently rezoned to an Ag 5 zoning. So the zoning would be fairly consistent with what is in the neighborhood. This is a picture taken at the time we placed this zoning notice sign on the property. As you can see, again, the road condition, for the level of service that is needed, the access to the property is appropriate for the proposed zoning. And this would be looking to the north from the property. And with that, staff recommends approval of the rezone request.
Thank you, Mr. Pope. Ms. Brown, will you come forward?
So what is it? Just I need to,
Just anything that you'd like to say or give us some information about your request?
just requesting to have it rezoned,
as to place the manufactured home. That's it.
All right, there is no one signed up to speak for or against this. Are there any questions for Ms. Brown from the board? All right, if there are none, we'll need a motion of recommendation.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve, is it second?
Second.
Second, from Mr. Bath, all those in favor? All right, the request of county commissioners meeting will be the first Tuesday, 5:30 in this room for a final determination.
Okay, thank you so much.
All right, that's March 4th, 5:30 in this room. Item number 2. Jerry Washington has submitted an application for condition modification to the condition number 1 of rezone case RZ 2009-043 of October 7th of 2009. The applicant specifically requests to remove condition 1. The property is located at 6980 Kennedy Bridge Road. And is Mr. Washington here? Thank you, sir. All right, Mr. Pope.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As stated in the request, this property was previously zoned and had some conditions placed on it into a general commercial zoning. The approximate location is shown on the map with the star, south of Register in the New Hope community. This is the zoning map, again, is shown as general commercial with conditions. I don't believe that the property ever, after it was rezoned, I don't think it ever opened. And so it has sat without any, I guess, tenant within the property, in the building. I got some site photos here, again, just showing, I guess, Kennedy Bridge Road from the property. And the access is, well, it does have frontage on Kennedy Bridge Road, but I think the original site plan had it coming in off of that county maintained dirt road, but and then this is the building as it is currently on our site visit. But I guess to look at it a little further, the condition number 1, and all this is in your staff report, I guess really the sole condition was that no alcoholic beverages to be sold on the premises. So it appears that looking back in the record, at the time of the hearing, there was, I guess, a concerned citizen that spoke up against selling alcohol. So that was placed in as a condition. But staff recommends approval of the condition modification. Again, you all have the benefit of having a public hearing to hear the concerns of the area properties, but at face value, it would be a typical item for sale in a convenience store if this was to be a convenience store. And I guess as much to sell alcohol, whether it's beer and wine, liquor is a completely separate item with conditional use. But beer and wine, you have a alcohol permit process where they go through background checks and that sort of thing. But so there are a few more steps they would have to go through if the condition were lifted. But again, with all that in consideration, staff recommends approval. So I'll turn it back over to you, Madam Chair.
Since this is a modification to the condition, it will have to be heard by the county commissioners on March 4th.
That's correct.
Mr. Washington, would you like to come forward and add anything you'd like to add?
No, ma'am. No,
Or answer, are there any questions from this board? Does Mr. Washington need to come forward?
no.
All right, if you'll come up forward, please, there is a question.
What's the time of operation?
Excuse me?
What's the time of operation?
Your hours.
Hours of the store from 9 o'clock to 11.
Mr. Clerk, was this condition placed on this because of the close proximity to the church that's down the road?
Again, back in 2009, I didn't uncover anything from the minutes as to the reason why the condition was placed on there, but I wasn't here then, so we, as part of the alcohol license, you'd have to look at the proximity to those things regulated in the
Okay.
local ordinance and the state law. But I don't know if that was the case or not.
Yeah.
But there is a chance, based on what you're saying, that if we were to vote to lift this condition, and he was too close to something like the church, he would still be preempted from selling alcohol. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. I was just making sure I understood what you were saying. So that we don't have the ability to override that, basically, with what we're doing here.
Right, so, I mean, I can't recite the ordinance off the top of my head, but you would follow whatever
Yeah.
alcohol ordinance there
Yeah.
is.
And I'm not saying you might not be too close to him. I don't know. I'm just,
The church, the nearest church to the location is the AWL Church of God. And from the steps of the church to the steps of my store is 700 feet. And I think the ordinance is for 300.
All right, if there are no other questions, we'll take a motion or recommendation.
Motion to approve.
Motion from Mr. Lane to approve, is there a second? Second. We have a second from Mr. Bath. All those in favor of lifting the condition, raise your hand. Any opposed? We will, that's unanimous, and we will recommend lifting the condition to the county commissioners, March 4th, 5:30, in the same room.
Thank you.
Thank you. Barbara Berry, as administrator for Edward Braddock, has applied to rezone 7.21 acres from Ag 5 to R2, which is a two-family residential, 15,000 square foot lot, for the purpose of creating a subdivision consisting of two family residences or duplexes. The property is located at 2012 Cody Lane. Mr. Ruben Ramos will be acting as agent for Ms. Berry. Mr. Pope?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Cody Lane is a local road which accesses, is south of Highway 80, as shown on this approximate map here. That star might be a little to the west, but it's actually seems a little closer to Brooklet. But anyways, it's just south of Highway 80. This is the zoning map for the property. It is an Ag 5 property. However, most of Cody Lane is zoned in a residential zoning in some way, whether just a neighboring property is R2, across Cody Lane is R80, and then just kind of a mix along Cody Lane. But it does have access, or will have access, onto the Greenway, so the SNS Greenway, when that's completed. This is the sketch plan that was provided by the applicant, in which, again, the request would be for 9 lots, a total of 18 units, 18 dwelling units. And initially, when the applicant came in, knowing the proximity to the Greenway, we kind of asked about access to the Greenway, and they added in the roadway, which would provide. There's not necessarily any parking as shown, but at least residents could walk down Cody Lane to get to the Greenway. And so with that, I do have some site photos here. This property is an R2 development just north of the, what's being proposed. I think it's, very similar design to this. This is Cody Lane. This would be looking north towards Highway 80. The picture I just showed would be up to the north and to the right. And this is at the cul-de-sac. This would be viewing across a neighboring property into what would be, I guess, the vegetative buffer for the natural buffer for the trail. And this is the property currently as it sits now. There are 2 or 3 structures on the property, but this would be, obviously once developed, pretty much the location of where you would go onto the trail. So, maybe that gives you a little better idea. But again, this is a site plan. We're recommending approval with 4 conditions that are in your staff report. With that, I'll turn it back over to you, Madam Chair.
All right, Mr. Ennis, if you'll come forward. If there's nothing you'd like to add, are there any questions for Mr. Ennis from this board? He is acting as agent for Ms. Berry, correct?
Yes.
No questions? All right, then if there are no questions, we'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve the rezone. Is there a second? Mr. Lane seconds it. All those in
Ma-
favor?
Was that with conditions?
With the 4 conditions?
With conditions,
Yes.
okay.
All those in favor? Opposed? All right, we will recommend approval of the county commissioners March 4th, 5:30 in this room.
Thank you, Board. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Roy Pilgrim Otwell III and Caroline Otwell Harris Harles have applied to rezone 162 acres from R80, which is residential 80,000 square foot lot, to Ag 5, which is a 5-acre lot, for the purpose of creating a subdivision. The property is located on Lots Creek Road. Mr. John Dotson will be acting as agent.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This application came in, well, I guess some time ago since we got delayed from the snowstorm, but from when the application was filed, I guess the applicants then sold the property. So who Mr. Dotson will speak for tonight is the one who assumed the application. So it is the property owner, but I think there's been, I guess, some question to my office about, the different name of who applied versus, who's applying or whatever. So anyway, that person assumed the application, which they can do once they buy the property. But, all right, so again, as stated by the request, it's 162 acres, currently zoned R80 with conditions. There was some conditions placed on the property, I believe, back in 2018, roughly, if I can recall correctly, in which it went from an Ag 5 property to an R80 with the purpose of creating a much larger subdivision that included some access to Brandon Lake and different things like that. But this parcel is probably about half of what was involved in that original rezone, if I recall. The approximate location is west of Statesboro off of Lots Creek Road. This is the zoning map for the property. It does involve 2 parcels. It would be what's shown in the blue and then this piece just to the right. So it does have the road frontage on Lots Creek. And then how that continues over on, it does have road frontage along the Brandon Lake Road. But area zoning around it, just to mention, is either Ag 5 or R80, so. This is the site plan that was provided by the applicant, which would, or anticipates subdivision of property, not under our ordinance, a technical subdivision. It would have road frontage on a county-maintained road. So then, it's not creating a new road. You could, section out that property as much road frontage as you can by ordinance with the right road frontage. But, so that's what's shown here. And then, I think I've had some question to my office about a different site plan that may have been from the 2018 plan. So I just wanted to reiterate that, this was a site plan that was proposed. Now, it is true that on track 1, if in the future they wanted to subdivide it, further, they would have to build a road. So then the Planning and Zoning Board would have to come in they'd have to come in front of y'all and create a subdivision if they were to ever go interior to the parcel to create a road. So you can keep that in mind as well. All right, this is the road frontage on Lots Creek Road. Area properties, it is a very much a rural area of the county, with some pockets of residential development along Brandon Lake and across Brandon Lake, but the Ag 5 zoning does appear to fit the area and the rural character of the area. With that, staff recommends approval of the rezone request with one condition for conventional built homes, which would, protect the area, which are like properties, conventional built homes. So that's why that condition is in there. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. All right, Mr. John Dodson will be acting as agent, but I will say this while he comes forward, that there are 6 people signed up to speak. So Johnny, you may want to reserve some time for a vote.
No
And
problem.
If you're signed up, remember there are 6 people who would like to say something.
I'll
Go ahead.
speak for a few minutes, and my client, Mr. Reddy, may wish to address the board as well. My name is John Dotson with the firm Pape Dawson now, instead of Maxwell Reddick. We've changed. Here representing Tim Redding tonight. There, as James said, the original application was filed in the name of Otwell and Harless. That,
Bring that forward.
how about now?
Better.
Thank you. Still can't talk very well, but anyway, Mr. Redding purchased the property sometime in either December or January. But his intent was to, number one, build a home site. Tim lives over in Metter. He has family in Bullock County. His kids go to Bullock County School, so he was going to try to move a little bit closer. But as part of this, he wanted to develop some lots, not a bunch, but a few. We show 15 lots on the sketch plan. There's a large tract that's approximately 80 acres that Tim will retain, and then 14 other lots that range in size from 5 acres to 20 acres. It is not packing a subdivision in. He will be very selective in his covenants, and they will have covenants. Whether they mirror Brandon Lake or not, it remains to be seen. But he wants to be a good neighbor. He wants to protect himself and the residents in the area. One question, and I had a call from Mr. Pope earlier today regarding a previous sketch plan, and yes, it did have one road that fronted on Brandon Lake Drive, but the zoning conditions that were placed on it in 2018 prohibited any access onto Brandon Lake Road. The only access would have been through Lots Creek Road. Now, this is 162 acres. That's why nothing has been done on it since. When Tim got it, we talked about it, and I told him the conditions that were placed on it. And he said, well, what can we do to go around that? And I said, all I would know to do would be to rezone it to Ag 5 and the conditions would be removed. So that's why we're here tonight. I have a copy of the previous rezoning plan. If we need to show it on the screen to alleviate any concerns or answer any questions.
That might be a good idea.
Okay,
I think there are some people that are here to speak, so would like to see that original.
right. Well, with that being said, we would ask for your support to rezone this to Ag 5. The conditions the county has placed on it, we're going to adhere to anyway, whether they place it or not. So anyway, with that being said, I'll reserve whatever time I have left. If Tim has any comments he'd like to make, we will do it now, or we can wait till after the opposing side speaks.
He is actually signed up to speak as well, so.
Yes, ma'am.
I'll call him, but, yeah.
Thank you.
No, you can, sorry, go ahead and come forward.
Good, come on, looking good. Well, thank y'all for your time tonight. I really appreciate it. And I'd like to thank John for all of his help because he, with his guidance, he's made this project fairly easy for me. A couple of folks, Jim Rakestraw and Linda Scheider, they were kind enough to introduce me to some of the community leaders in that, or neighborhood people, and Kathy and I were able to meet with them during December, a lot of the neighbors, and answer some of their questions. I'm sure there's new ones. During that time, I've got with my attorney, and we've drawn up some of the requirements that we would have on our side, and I tried to mirror the covenants with what Jim had provided, not word for word or anything, but just to protect them from the size of the homes, making sure we don't have cows and hogs running around. And I guess I wanted to protect mine. I have a lot invested in this property. And I'm gonna have a lot invested when I finish with the home. And I'd like it to be just a nice, quiet area that I can enjoy. And I believe what we have planned and the restrictions we put on the homes would also make sure that the neighbors will be very happy with what we're doing. Got some good reasons for coming over there. As John said, I have 3 children, they're married, and Kathy and I, we've been blessed to have 10 grandchildren, 8 of which live in Statesboro. So with all the happenings going on over here, we catch ourselves over here a lot more than we do in Metter. And also Metter, I built a beautiful home there years ago, and I love the house. Unfortunately, it's 3 stories. And I've gotten where, well, I told one of the builders, I said, if you could design a home where I could walk down to go in it and walk down to leave it, that's the one I want, making a joke. But I just about got it, 66 years old, I don't feel like climbing as many stairs anymore. But we do most of our activities over here. We go to First Baptist. Kathy was a member, I've been a member and been going there for 20 years. And then we catch ourselves eating, shopping, doing most of our activities in this area. And of course, the grandkids keep us there, our children there. You have Justin and Emily Lancaster, my daughter's Emily. Justin is a physician. He's a doctor for Georgia Southern University in Optum. And Emily's, she works now as I guess we call it, she's running the youth ministry at First Baptist temporarily. And then Timothy, he runs 2 of my Ford dealerships in Dublin and Swainsboro. And then Daniel's running one that I've had for 34 years. Over the years, I've purchased several Ford stores, but he's running one in Metter and oversees one in Sylvania. His wife, Daniel's wife, works for Ogeechee Tech. She's one of their teachers, and she works part-time for a local doctor. And Timothy, his wife, works at Trinity up in Dublin. So we spend a couple of days on the road watching the 2 boys up there as well. But our main reason is just to build a home, relax, enjoy the last years God has me here before He takes me to my new home, and just enjoy myself. And Kathy and I would love y'all to approve it. Thank you.
Linda Schaefer.
Thank you very much for hearing me. I just had, a question regarding access. If it changes to Ag 5, it changes the access that we were used to, and maybe that's something that we can't control or have no choice over. And that was one of my questions. I wasn't sure what the answer was.
Mr. Pope, can you help address her with that?
Well, Brad might be better, but, I mean, in certain applications, like as in before, where it went to Ag 5 to an R80, the access to the, to y'all's roadway, I guess for whatever reason, maybe they felt like that was going to be too much traffic on the road. That condition was placed on the property. But, that was a good many more units that would access that road. So I guess back to the question, can you restrict access to it? I think you could. This board could recommend a condition that limits access onto Brandon Lake Road, but, as presented and being a county-maintained road, Brad, unless you speak of otherwise, I don't think staff would recommend that condition in this case.
Well, I'm glad to see that this is happening versus the other option, which was the R80 with a lot of homes. The only concern I have is access. In our perfect world, we'd love for the access to not be on Brandon Lake, but we are also grateful that we're not getting a subdivision with many, many homes. So that's the only concern that I had, and that's it.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
All right, Jim Campbell?
Do want to thank Tim and Kathy for coming and talking to us ahead of time on this. My main concern, and really isn't that much of a concern, but it may be, when we all bought our property, in buying the property, we have listed in the sales agreement that any lots on that side of Brandon Lake Road that will be built will follow our covenants, and that they will have architectural control, they'll be under those covenants and all that. So we would like to work with the Reddings on creating what those covenants are going back through ours, because some of them are outdated. I don't know that I'm speaking against or for. I'm just saying, I think we've all known that at some point there would be houses on the other side of the street. I'm glad we're not going to be looking at the back of the other houses. I'd rather look at the front of the other houses on there. I'm glad too that it's limiting to being 10 added to the road as opposed to probably being 20 added onto that road if it were the smaller sizes. And just want to request too that the lots not be sold to anyone for building spec houses on there, if that's any kind of possibility within the zoning, that we would prefer it to be custom-built homes for individuals and the lots sold to them. But thank you.
Thank you. All right, John Tucker?
I am against for building a house and using Brandon Lake Road to get to this new subdivision. As he mentioned earlier, there's a plan. You're supposed to they're supposed to build a road for those other lots. The way I understand his program is he's going to cut off the Braddock Lake Road for some and then leave it like that. You see, so that way you got a house there so everybody else can. But that is, my opinion is that it's eventually going to be sold. There's going to be houses made there, and it's going to be a whole new set of rules. And so we're asking that you not approve any kind of a road, and we would like for it to say R80. And that's where, because I was in the meeting where Roy Thompson said, if you don't like R80, then we're going to turn it back into a hog farm for you. And so we changed it, we lived with it, and we don't want it anymore. And if you're going to do it, please have them build a road, their own road for that subdivision. That's all I'm asking. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, Elizabeth Lippincott?
Oh, I didn't sign up to speak.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
So you have nothing, okay. All right, Jim Rakestraw?
Yeah, thank you. The only thing that I'd like to echo is the comments that Jim Campbell made, that, there were covenants that were developed for the east side of Brandon Lake Road, and we were given actually given written agreements that promise that when the west side is developed, they would have similar covenants. So we really will want to work with the Reddings to make sure the covenants are kind of in agreement. And Mr. Redding has shared a draft of those covenants, and we continue to refine them. So I'm confident that we can work that out. The other thing we talked about is if that larger parcel down on the south end were ever subdivided by somebody maybe who's, successor owner to the Reddings, that all of those lots not be accessed solely through Brandon Lake Road, but, that at least an additional access be provided from Lodge Creek Road, just to handle the traffic problem then.
And that's future and down the road, that bigger parcel.
Yeah, if that were ever subdivided, we'd want, some other way to access whatever lots might be. I don't think the Reddings plan to do that, but another owner at some point could. Okay, thank you.
Sir. Are there any questions to Dotson to come back up? I think he's got about 4 minutes for any questions. All right, Johnny, you can come forward. Have some questions?
I'm pretty sure I know the answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway for the record. But if this gets denied, the next person could buy this property and put 300 houses on it because it's already 260 houses if somebody else were to buy it.
Yes, sir.
Correct.
Absolutely.
So that's really my only question. Thanks.
Brandon Lake Road is a county designated road,
Yes, sir.
so the
County owned,
access,
county maintained.
the access to the road really couldn't have any restrictions put on it for this side.
They are,
Their covenants on the Brandon Lake side really can't affect what goes on the other side other than by his agreement to do it.
well, from what Jim said, they had, when they purchased lots on Brandon Lake, Mr. Irvin still owned it at that time. And correct me if I'm wrong, Jim, but he agreed. Right. Now, I don't know if it was in the deeds or anything for that. You have to go to the staff attorney. He may have to answer that question,
Okay.
but
And we have nothing from this board to do with the covenants.
no, sir.
So just for public knowledge.
Any other questions? All right, is there a motion of a recommendation?
I'll make a motion to approve this
With the condition.
with the condition.
I got one. All right, Mr. Babb made the motion, second, Mr. Lane. All those in favor? Any opposed? We'll recommend approval with the condition for the county commissioners, March 4th, 5:30.
Thank you, ma'am.
William Southwell has submitted an application for a sketch plan to divide 20 acres into 4 different parcels. The property is located on 890 South 10 Road, and Jim Anderson would work with the applicant.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, this is a sketch plan of Ag 5 property. Southwind Road goes, well, as you see with the star, south of Statesboro, just to the east of 67. I guess if you were traveling over to Brooklet, you'd probably take this road often. This is the zoning map for the property. Again, it's an Ag 5 property. The lot, it's a little odd shape, but the majority of this, the sketch plan would be a division on the northern part of this parcel. Again, as you see here, this would create 4 lots. It utilizes a private road, which is allowed by ordinance in the Ag 5 zoning. The road would not have to be paved. Anything, once you go to 6 lots, you have to pave it, but this being 4 lots, you wouldn't have to, it could remain, just a private dirt road. And Mr. Southwell owns the property just to the north along Southwind Road. So as I conferred with Mr. Akins, this would be allowed with a private easement over that parcel. So really just the creation of the 4 lots. I think that's really all I have on this. Again, the request would just be to allow 4 single-family dwellings to go on the property, and staff recommends approval.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and James, thank you for the introduction, Board. I am Jim Anderson, local surveyor, and I'm representing Mr. William Southwell, who's back here on the second row with me. James has covered a good bit of it. The location is, it's on east of 67. It's about a half a mile from 67 to the east on the south side of Southwind Road. We'd asked to approve 4 5-acre lots that would be carved out of a 50-acre tract. So we'd be using 20 acres of the 50 acres, which would leave 30 acres in that tract that we would not divide into lots. As James mentioned, we would access it by a private street. We would expect to adhere to all the county specs on creating a private street. We would have an association to set up a maintenance of that street. It'd be posted as private. It'd be on the plat that it was private. It'd be in the deeds that it was private. Property has good soil for septic tanks. We would allow mobile homes. It would be a community water system that would only serve these 4 lots, be one well to serve these 4 lots. But that's, I think you can do that as long as you don't serve over 10 hookups. We would be coming through another tract there off of the south side of Southwind that Mr. Southwell owns as well, and he actually lives there. We'd ask that you approve this sketch plan with the private road, and it would not be paved. Staff has recommended approval, and we'll try to answer any questions you may have.
Is there enough room on that last, I know it's a very short road and it's private, but an emergency vehicle had to get to that last lot. They got room to turn around and maneuver.
I guess we could create probably a bubble there if we needed to. We'd probably offset it to the south so it wouldn't interfere with where we got those houses. We offset those bubbles sometimes to one side or the other, so the 60-foot offset a little bit. But we could add a turnaround there that would have a 40-foot radius that pretty much fire trucks need.
We need to add that as a condition. I mean, it's just before, I know it's just 4 lots, but I mean.
Yeah, I think when you get into that detail with these private roads, it's kind of just, we don't get too many with the design standards on the dirt roads. I mean, it's kind of do the best you can. It's going to be private, but yeah, we would look at that when they turn in the next phase, the next step in the process.
What's up with setback from the road to the house on the right? Looking at the map, it looks like the setback from the easement or setback from?
Well, Charles, it's kind of hard sometimes to figure out what's the front yard and the side yard on some of these lots. So, and James may have to help me with that a little bit, where we need to put that dwelling on these lots. I think we tried to set them back we're in Ag 5, so I don't know where James is going to consider them to be, front yard be facing the private road or the front yard facing Southwell. So we'll have to hear what he tells us is a front yard, but it's kind of hard to know sometimes.
What about your well with the size well and gallons per minute for fire protection?
I don't think we'll have to.
They'd be exempt on that, yeah.
Are there any other questions?
Are you going to retain the rest of that as farmland on the other side of that easement?
Yes. Well, yeah, we'll, I mean, it would, that would depend on, I guess, what the owners want to do. Mr. Southwell owns 30 more acres south of these 4 lots. I think his intent is to keep his in cultivation, yes.
If there are no more questions, we'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve the sketch plan, is there a second? Second, Mr. Brandon, all those in favor? Unanimous, the sketch plan is approved.
Thank y'all.
Niki Grant has applied for conditional use of 5 acres to establish a daycare facility. The undeveloped property is located in the 300 block of Simons Road. Mrs. Grant will be acting as the agent. Is she here?
Yes, she is. Thank you, Madam Chair. The property is currently zoned as R40 zoning. Again, the request is for a daycare facility to be the primary use for the property, which is allowed by conditional use. Let's see. The approximate location is, again, Simons Road. If you take Miller Street extension from the bypass, and, well, as you can see, approximate location with the star there. This is a zoning map of the property as well as an aerial overlay. And again, the property is currently undeveloped. There are single-family homes, well, as you can see, I guess just to the west and at the end of the Simons Road. And the Simons Road, as you drive in, has several single-family dwellings, smaller lot parcels, and I would say primarily the area is a residential area. As proposed by the applicant, and the staff report included a letter of intent from the applicant, which I think kind of lays out anything better than I could do for what the intent would be. But this is a site plan that was proposed. Before I give our recommendation, I'll just say that I would recognize the fact that daycare facilities are a needed use in the community. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But the concern from the staff point of view is what is being proposed at its base level. Would it change the character of the area as a more of a commercial facility than a residential setting? And I don't know that. We listed a few recommendations or conditions in the staff report that may alleviate the concern. But I think as presented, staff recommends a denial of the conditional use request. However, of course, this board and the next board makes that determination, but we do recommend conditions if approved. Now, this is Simons Road. This is roughly the access point of where the facility would be. Just beyond the trees there on the left, that is a single-family dwelling. So, common land use concerns with daycare facility may be, the noise generated from outdoor play areas, parking, what is the lighting for the parking or lighting of the structure. So, I think we addressed that somewhat by vegetative buffering in the conditions. And so, again, this is the property, looking into the property from Simons Road, presently undeveloped. So, I think we did the best we could on the staff report, knowing that it's it's a very much needed use, but I think y'all ultimately have to make the determination of does it fit the area as presented. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Madam Chair. Sorry to get long-winded on that.
Ms. Grant? And when you get up there, are you familiar with the conditions that they're asking, each of the conditions? No. Can she get a copy so she can see those conditions? That's a lot to read, because there are like 11 of them. With your permission, if you would like, and I'll let you, we can go with the next item on the agenda and let you have time to read that and then bring you back up. That's your choice.
That'll be fine.
Would you like to do that?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that, can we do that? Motion?
Motion to
Yeah.
defer item 6 to the end of the agenda.
All those in favor? All right, is that proper etiquette?
That's
All right, so give me time to read over.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, we're gonna go on to AM/PM Convenience Stores Incorporated has submitted a request for conditional use for operating a drive-through facility. The property is located at US Highway 80 and Burkhalter Road. Manfred Singh will be acting as the agent.
I'm here to represent them.
All right, thank you. All right, Mr. Pope.
Thank you, Madam Chair. All right, this property is presently zoned highway commercial, but our ordinance requires a conditional use approval for any kind of drive-through facility, whether it's a primary use or an accessory use. In this case, this would be an accessory use to a larger portion of the development. I believe, as you stated, the location is at the corner of US 80 and Burkhalter Road on the north part of that intersection, northwest quadrant. I guess that's really all north, but as shown on the zoning map, it is the parcel is split zone to an R80 and highway commercial. However, to the best I can tell, what they're proposing falls within the highway commercial zone, given the approximate how things are drawn with GIS and whatnot. But so the property is highway commercial. The facility, the drive-through facility, as shown on the site plan. Let me back up. This would be a truck stop for, I think, 4 diesel pumps. You can see that however many number of gas pumps there, but a convenience store portion to one side of the building, and then on the other portion would be some restaurant with a drive-through. So the drive-through, as proposed, is on the left side of the building. You have a stacking lane that appears adequate for, a good many number of cars as we would anticipate for the square footage of the property. And so, area concerns for a drive-through facility, well, if it's right next to a house, you have loudspeakers and things like that. But in this case, you're really looking at very, very minor impact, if any, on neighboring properties. The owner, in fact, owns the left portion of this area here that I believe, is being reserved for future development at whatever date, but it's a highway commercial zone, so you may have light properties develop on that as well. So with that said, the common concerns with the drive-through facility, I don't think we really see those here, so staff recommends approval of the conditional use request. And I do have just some photos of how the property sits currently. Again, it's just it's a vacant parcel. This is the intersection at 80 and Burkhalter. The drive-through conditional use is not necessarily I don't think you really have to anticipate the traffic with this use, but the next step of the process would be a plan or a conceptual site plan approval. And so, we can tackle the traffic issue by the truck stop at a later time, but truck stops are a permitted use in highway commercial zoning. We did file a development of regional impact with when this application came in, but that's more to serve for the conceptual site plan rather than to affect the process of this conditional use. So I'm not sure if the Planning Commission gets those development of regional impact reports, but when that comes out from the Coastal Regional Commission, we'll include that in the staff report for the conceptual site plan. And Brad and I have been in contact with DOT about the traffic on 80 and the turn lane that would be required for the truck stop and whatnot. So we're not quite there yet with a conceptual site plan, but I did want to make you aware that you'll see this development come back to you for later approval. So and then this is Burkhalter looking south down to 80 at the intersection, and this is the opposite of that picture. So I'll go back to the site plan in case y'all have any questions, and Madam Chair, I'll turn it back over to you.
If you'll come forward. Do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, ma'am, just here to represent Gas Pro AM/PM LLC to request the drive-through. We are currently operating one on 301 North at the Gas Pro going into the Walmart Distribution Center. And we have 11 locations in Georgia. We just opened one in Thompson, and we are currently using the drive-through in Thompson.
Billy, state your name for the record.
I'm sorry, Billy Hodges with Gas Pro. I know, and he couldn't get here, so I'm a little late to come here, I'm sorry.
Are there any questions?
James, this is strictly just to allow drive-through. We're not talking about anything else, no traffic, nothing right now. Just a ability to put a drive-through on this property at some point.
I mean, so certainly you consider traffic in a conditional use request, but I think in this instance, if you were just a single use fast food restaurant that was going to back traffic up into 80, that would be a different configuration than what we see here. So, I didn't really get into the traffic. I mean, I think the peak hour trips were very low, less than 100, was that right? I can't remember, but yeah, traffic was very minimal as related to a drive-through.
Will the drive-through be used something like for the restaurant or for the store?
The restaurant.
So it'd be kind of like the Burger King at
the TA.
QSR, like you would see in Love's in Lincoln next door. You could enter through the store, through the front of the building, and then the drive-through.
There are no more questions, a motion?
Move to approve.
A motion to approve, is there a second? Second, Mr. Brandon, all those in favor? We will recommend approval before the county commission, March 4th.
Thank you.
rear yard setback instead of the required 10 feet. This is to allow a single-family home to be rebuilt outside the footprint of the original structure. The property is located at 2031 Cypress Lake Road, and Denise will be acting as the agent. Mr. Pope?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Current zoning as shown as an R15, as most of those lots around Cypress Lake were R15, smaller lot zones, which I think were created, the parcels were created before zoning, so it just kind of fit the square footage. Approximate location, if you know where Cypress Lake is, it's pretty much right at the spillway of Cypress Lake. Some backstory for the property. One of the hurricanes that came through and threatened Cypress Lake, the structure of it, it went over the dam and significantly, or I guess really destroyed the home. But so to build back in that location would take basically starting over. And so the elevation of the home that's being proposed is as shown on here, which would have a higher elevation than what was there currently. But to get to the variance request, presently where the house sits, you know, GIS parcels, they're pretty close. I mean, we have pretty good data, but as shown, it kind of overhangs into another property, but because the house was significantly damaged or destroyed, you have to, you know, you're over that 50% threshold, so you got to build everything back to code as it is today. And for this to occur in the same spot, you have to, you know, come in and ask for the variance for the basically zero lot line setback. So staff recommends approval with some conditions. We feel like it would be an appropriate trade-off in that the adjacent property owner, which I'll just call it, I think it's Cypress Lake Inc. Incorporated, they have provided a letter of support for the variance, so we didn't find any issue there. And the trade-off being, and addressing the conditions would be you build the house back at a higher elevation to address any potential flooding in the future. So if you're going to go closer to the lake, you know, give us some trade-off on height. And you know, the EMA director was very concerned when he saw that. Why are we building back in a flood hazard area? But if you build it, you know, we've had enough experience with this locally, over the state and federally. So if you build it to current construction methods, then you should be okay. But so that's what we've included in the conditions and feel like it's a, you know, appropriate trade-off. And so again, that's what we recommend. We did include here's some photos from the property from Cypress Lake Road. That house to the right, you may recall some photos when the Cypress Lake was flooding. I think it maybe took the neighbor's fence down. So, I mean, it was pretty significant flooding, but, you know, in consideration to properties near the lake, the one directly next to it is kind of the same situation. I guess everybody wanted to be close as they could be to the water. So, that, you know, a common development pattern around the Cypress Lake. So, with that, Madam Chair, I'll turn it back over to you.
For any questions? Well, what we want to do is we love living there and we'd like to rebuild. We want to build higher to mitigate any problems that may occur on down the future. So we are building higher elevation. We're building out of steel, and it will have steel beams. The interior, instead of stud walls with wood, we'll have steel. and we've decided to put rated windows in there for 180-mile-hour winds, just to mitigate any other hurricanes that come through, because I'm not too happy with the hurricanes we've had here in the last part of this year. But any questions?
Any questions?
The height elevation.
Our builder is working on our plans, but it's going to be over, the floor elevation will be higher than 10 feet.
And this picture is deceiving, but the house is on her property, right? It's not over the property line?
Part of our current structure is over the property line. We have no intention of going over the property line. When I spoke with Mr. Donald Marsh, who did our survey, because we bought parcels along in the years, and then I said, I need one that's got everything. So whenever I went to meet with him again, and I showed him, what I was doing, he said, yes, but make sure you don't go over that line. Make sure the eave of your house is not even over that line. So no, we will not have any encroachment there, and I've already told that to our builder also.
This is a little out of the box, but I see Mr. Kent is here. He's president of the homeowners association. Is that all right? Is that correct? Is there anything that you?
I'm kind of the public spokesman. I'm not the president. Yes, I am a lake owner, and Ms. Teresa Allen is the secretary of the corporation of Cypress Lake Inc. We are the adjoining property owner and very much.
Say your whole names for the
I'm
record.
sorry, for the record, Brian Kent, property owner on Cypress Lake and speaking on behalf of Cypress Lake Inc. And we're very supportive of the Bernsons' attempt to rebuild, and as y'all may know, that side of the lake had catastrophic damage from Debbie. And the Bernsons were at the brunt of that damage, and so they're simply trying to build their home back and put their life back together. Very much in support. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kent. All right, are there any questions?
I've got one more. Is she gonna have to come back for a variance? Is her house gonna be over the maximum 26 feet or whatever that is allowed in Bullock County with the additional, the additional height? Or maybe I'm just getting ahead here.
I
but
can address that if you like.
Sure.
I spoke with Mr. Pope, who told me that in R15, the height is 35 foot.
Right,
And
yes.
he can do we are going to ask him to do an administrative variance because our total height is going to be close to 40, not 35. So I've already got that application typed up, but just haven't made my way back to him yet.
Yeah, I mean, we discussed it, and of course, without a set of plans, you don't know exactly, and then, so, but yeah, I mean, we could handle that administratively. Of course, you have a public hearing process and have the administrative official hold the public hearing, but not to, if it's within reason and that's what the board allows for an administrative variance, then I would certainly be apt to do that, but, in this case, I think it may be appropriate, but if that is the case and they, get far enough along down the road with the plans, then yes, we could handle it administratively.
Are there any other questions? If not, is there a motion? Motion from Mr. Lane to approve, a second from Mr. Brandon. All right, the variance is granted.
Thank you.
All those in favor? All right, it's unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Birdsong has submitted an application to rezone approximately 10 acres from Ag 5 to heavy industrial for the purpose of warehousing and storage. The property is located at 3999 Brooklet Leafield Road. David Russian, is he here? All right, we got his agent.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This 10 acres being requested for heavy industrial is really would match the existing property zoning that the corporation owns in adjacent parcels. But first, approximate location, you're looking at between Brooklet and Leafield. Brooklet, Leafield Road, and Cleto Road. This is the zoning map for the area, heavy industrial and Ag 5 zoning, very close colors on the zoning map, but it is heavy industrial for the two parcels that are owned by the corporation. So the request would be for the 10 acres that is highlighted in blue to match that zoning. And what prompted this was so that they could build onto that parcel in a very limited way for a warehouse that would, as shown here, the majority of the build would be on what's already heavy industrial for the peanut warehouse. So a very small portion of this would actually be utilized. Now, in the future that may change, but we have regulations that would, I guess, police that at a later date. But as shown, this is the proposed warehouse. So we did place a condition or recommend a condition that, if you look at the permitted uses in heavy industrial, that really runs the gambit of what you can do. So felt like if this was the use of a peanut warehouse, then just match it to what the actual use is rather than open it up to junkyards and everything else. So that's why the condition is in there. So this is what one of the structures on the property currently is. As the photo is taken, this would be on the parcel that's being as part of the request. This would be the I guess the northern boundary, but the property owner to the north, this is their current use. It's has forestry on it, and so it's just, again, if you've seen a peanut warehouse, basically what it is. But again, with that, we recommend approval with the conditions. So, Madam Chair, I'll turn it back to you.
Yes, ma'am.
Are there any questions? There's no one trying to speak in opposition. So are there any questions for Mr. Rushing?
What are the conditions?
Just one condition, the principal use for the parcel shall be limited to warehousing and storage and wholesale operations. Can you agree with that?
Yes, ma'am.
Entertain a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second, Ms. Reiner, all those in favor? We'll recommend approval. With condition, yeah. Although we recommend approval of the county commissioner.
All right. Thank y'all.
Burkhalter-GSL LLC has submitted an application for conceptual site plan approval for Pod 1 through 3 to include all phases of Adelaide Plantation. The property is located north of US 80 and Burkhalter Road intersection. Clark O'Barr will be acting as agent. Mr. O'Barr is not here, so Mr. Dotson is here acting as agent for him. Mr. Pope.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This property is located adjacent to the convenience store property that you heard earlier in the agenda. But again, at Burkhalter and Highway 80 on the north portion, this is a zoning map for the property. It was rezoned into a PUD 1, which is a mixed residential type. You have townhomes, duplex or two-family dwellings, and single-family dwellings. The applicant has provided a will-serve letter from the City of Statesboro, which states that City of Statesboro will, at the developer's expense, serve, or, they'll provide service for water and sewer for the property. That will serve letter, again, tells us that they can continue into the process, whatever stipulations that are placed on it by the city with, any future actions or whatever. They'll go, they have the opportunity to go through, and as long as they pay to build out the water and sewer, then they would be able to, get the service. Correct, yeah. So with the water and sewer, that would open up the ability to move forward with this plan. The plan, I was trying to think back, there really hasn't been a PUD approval. There's been a few approved over the years, but there's never been one that goes to the final plan. So this is the conceptual site plan, final plan submittal, basically a sketch plan for this development. By and large, what was being proposed did not change in your staff report. And hopefully, if y'all got the PDF version on my email, it had a little more detail than what I could provide at the typical staff report level. But we have worked with the developer to, there's conditions about a playground. You see the picture of the playground structure there, which would be about where my mouse is being located. Let's see. But, one of the questions we asked, we need to make sure there's, is a handicap accessible playground. So you'll see in one of the site plans, there is a plan to have an asphalt trail to the playground for, to make that accessible. We wanted to make sure of that. And then the playground by condition would have to be built pretty early on in the process so that it's not an afterthought after everything's built out and then you add the playground. We want it, by condition, they'd have to put it early on into the process. But the plan really didn't change from when y'all or from when the property was rezoned to PUD 1. So fairly easy review once you get the water and sewer serve letter. So well, yeah, we'll monitor it like, I guess, all the other subdivisions, but there's one thing in the more detailed plan that I sent y'all, they don't necessarily show the turn lane, but the conditions state that you have to have a turn lane into the first entry point, which, if you can see the monitor, is about where I'm at. So that's something we'll just make sure at preliminary plan phase that, that would be up to Brad to make sure that's there. But, so yeah, I think their build out is going to be fairly quick. And so they're seeking approval from all pods, so all types and all phases. And it's my understanding that they plan to begin building, as soon as the plans are approved and they can get the water and sewer running. And, yeah, so.
All right, leave this up for us.
Okay.
Watson, hear your presentation.
Please approve. No, this is the next step in the process. So if you look on the screen, I think the plan is to start with the units on the right-hand side, which I think are single-family, and work their way all the way back around. It's got single-family, duplexes, townhomes, adequate parking, a lot of amenities. We've gone through all the buffers and everything that the staff has required, and I'll answer any questions you may have.
Any questions from Mr. Dodson? Mr. Brown?
I have one. Why are the streets in the townhomes and duplexes labeled as private and the other streets are not?
I think,
Larson Street project.
so this is the very last one in your staff report, which is not, I didn't put this on the PowerPoint, but that was a question we had when they initially brought this in. I mean, again, by and large, the outline of everything hasn't changed, but that private street was removed because, or that label was removed. Right, yeah, that's the correct one. Because, if the amenity is gonna be in the townhome, can you access the pool? So we brought that question up and said, oh, well, we'll just remove that private label. So, and the one Mr. Dotson's providing you is not labeled private, and that's. This is the one we're approving. Right, yeah, I guess the very last one in your staff report. I think that one just kind of.
So that's the only change, is private, removed, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
John, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
You got a lot of houses and paving and you've got a retention pond. That retention pond is going to drain into the subdivisions we put on Youngblood Road. What's gonna happen when we get rains like we've had? And doesn't look like a very big pond for the size subdivision or development that we're looking at.
I agree. I wish I could say that it won't flood it, but you probably know better than anybody, the floods and everything that we've had. We try to design our detention ponds of a sufficient size to meet the 25-year storm. I think the one that we had, even just the rain, not the hurricane that we had, in 48 hours, I had 19 inches on west side. So there's nothing that we could do to come, but we try to do it so it is not impacting. Will it? I can't guarantee that, no, sir.
I understand that, but.
Well, and I would say, I know I go by here a lot, and this particular piece of property, the ridge runs right through the middle of it, and probably at least half of this falls to Burkhalter, and and the county will probably be grateful in a way that this stopped, because when it was a field, all the dirt would wash out of this driveway on the north end of it and cover Burkhalter with dirt, and you can't even see. There's a pond back there about where this pond is now.
That is an existing.
But you can't even see it from Burkhalter because it's such a hill.
Yes,
I would actually be more concerned about what it's going to do to Burkhalter than what it's going to do back there, because there's a lot of water comes off of that side coming down to Burkhalter, as it is.
All I can say, Charles, is we do the best we can. We're not magicians, but we do. Honestly, we put a lot of thought and effort into it.
Are there any questions listed up? Mr. Lane?
The wells and the sewage, right?
It will run from this site up to Highway 80. It'll cross 80 on Burkhalter and go to the roundabout and work its way down the railroad bed road to Beacon Place. I believe it's the closest access point now.
Just a curiosity, city services are large enough to support all of this?
Yes, ma'am. This, as a matter of fact, the sewage for this project and the one from Brooklet will join there at the roundabout. So hopefully it's big enough. They say it is. And this will have a pump station on this site. It'll gravity flow from all the units into the pump station and then pump back up to Burkhalter and all the way to Beacon Place. So.
It does sound like it's been very well thought out.
So they'll have fire hydrants throughout this?
Yes, sir.
And they'll have sidewalks throughout all of it?
Sidewalks throughout, fire hydrants, yes, sir. Sure looks like a lot of units on a little piece of property though, but.
All right, if there are no other questions, There is no condition. Second?
Second.
Got a second? All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous.
Thank you.
It's approved. All right, now, Ms. Grant, thank you very much for your patience. We've had time to look over this. Yes. All right, come on back forward here. All right, you've had time to read them. Any problems with any of those conditions?
No, ma'am.
All right, and this is Ms. Grant, who has applied for a conditional use of 5 acres to establish a daycare center. Any questions for Ms. Grant?
Your plans are to build a metal building.
Yes, sir.
How are you going to make that blend into the neighborhood?
Well, I think the front of it, I probably will brick it up in the front to kind of make it look like a residential setting instead of a business.
Okay, and you understand you got a lot of paving to do.
Yes, sir, I understand.
Driveway, parking lots.
Do we have anybody signed up in opposition?
No one signed up in opposition, none of the neighbors, there is no opposition.
Can I ask about your hours? Because I noticed, I think, James, the ordinance is 6:30 A to P.
Oh, that's correct. Yes, ma'am.
And I noticed in your letter, you're saying 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. and then with flexible hours.
Yes, I can do the 6:30, whatever time is allowed, I can do that time.
Okay.
And your playground area, I see a proposed fence on the back, but
Yes, sir. It'll be on the back.
it will be completely fenced in play area.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
All right, I see the proposed fence goes all around the property, but the playground area in addition will be fenced in.
Yes, ma'am. And what was the hours of operation again? Was it 6:30 to?
6:30.
6:30 to 6:30.
Gotcha, yes, ma'am.
And if that would change, you would have to come back for variance.
Right, yes, you'd have to get a variance if you want to go outside of those hours. Which, we changed that in the ordinance a few months ago because for some reason we had written it at 8 a.m. Nobody takes their kid at 8 a.m. hardly, so.
That's right. All right, if there's any other questions for Ms. Grant? Entertain a motion or recommendation?
Motion to approve it.
We've got a motion to approve.
With the conditions.
11 conditions, I think. All right, is there a second?
Second motion.
Second, Mr. Lane, all those in favor? Opposition? All right, there's one opposition, but it will go before the county commissioners for a final determination with a recommendation of approval.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your
Thank you
patience.
for your patience, Ms. Grant.
And you can hold on to that. Yep, thank you.
That's all we have for tonight, but before we adjourn, we should be electing officers for the next year. That has not been done. So I think before we adjourn, we need to have a motion for Mr. Lane.
I was motion that, we rescind and continue what we have.
All right, there's a motion to leave as is. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Ms. Reiner. All those in favor? All right, all those opposed? All right, the officers will remain for next year as is.
Oh,
Mr. Burke.
yeah, yes, ma'am, if you will. I would just say that I did enjoy going to the Georgia Zoning Administrators Conference in Columbus. Several of y'all attended, and maybe next time we have it, I think it'll be in Athens next time.
Next February will be Athens. Next August.
Rome next, okay. But, you know,
13th and 14th, I think.
one of the main takeaways, that the legal update that was given first session was that, you know, there may be some changes back to the variance advertisement requirements from the 30-day minimum to taking it back to the 15 to 45-day timeline. So we might be able to get a little tighter on our application deadlines versus when you actually get on the agenda, because right now it seems so far away when you come in and apply, so.
I think there was a lot of objection to that. I think they found after they passed that House bill, that there were some problems. So I think they're addressing it fiercely.
But other than that, I mean, it was a good conference. If you've been to a Gaza conference, it was, a lot of the same stuff, and we've provided some input on, maybe some future speakers, things that we see down here. But anyway, overall, and Madam Chair, you're on the board, and I know they praised you a lot for having a lot to do with the conference, so we do appreciate that and representing Bullitt County well.
It's a good conference, it's good information. The legislative updates, I agree, are some of the best. But before we left on Friday, we fill out surveys, and most of you know this, and we asked for input on what topics you'd like to understand here. I will say I did put impact fees down as a future topic.
Right, and well, for those on the board that may not have caught one of the last commissioner meetings, I did give a presentation to the Board of Commissioners about, I guess, the exploration of impact fees and how, how that would work in the community. And as I explained to them, it's a tool for development. It's not the magic wand that takes away all the issues and concerns. I mean, as you see every month, there's always something new. But it's a tool that a lot of communities use. So that's something that, as that develops, I'll keep this board up to date, because obviously it has a lot to do with, even the zoning reports that we write with financial impacts. It could be a way to bring those up to, getting it out of the red into an initial cash infusement into the budget, I guess, but infusion. But
We had two new county commissioners attend, and I think they both thoroughly enjoyed it and learned a lot. So we appreciate them. And for an organization that charges $35 to be a member, I think it's well worth it. And I think every one of our representatives came home with a gift this time.
Wow.
They won. Charles got double, I think.
I'd like to say I thoroughly enjoyed it, appreciate the board sending us. I'd like to thank David and Nick for going. I sat by David in several of the meetings, and he was taking a lot of notes, and so that was good. A couple of things that they did bring out that I think I mentioned them to James and to David that we need to do. But one of the things was, and I'd like our board to think about, is how can we allow, if we have 20 people signed up to speak, how can we work to try to get more of those people to speak, and maybe come up with some ideas that would help our citizens be able to everybody have a voice to speak.
Some municipalities allow each speaker 3 minutes, and that seemed to be the most prevalent that we heard. It was instead of 10 minutes on a whole program. But again, we'll follow the county commissioners.
Yeah, the only issue with that, I think the state law requires you allow at least 10 minutes. So if you only had one speaker and you allowed them 3 minutes, that would run afoul of that.
It's 10 total minutes, so if there was 20 people signed up to speak that night, 3 minutes apiece would suffice. But if there was only 3, then yeah, we would have to still allow the full 10 minutes. So
that's right.
Is it appropriate to announce, like I did tonight, when there were 6 people signed up? Is it appropriate to say that there are 6 people signed up and there are a total of 10 minutes?
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, as long as you're allowing each side at least 10 minutes, that is the ceiling, the floor. You can't go below that, but you can allow them to talk for 10 hours if you want to.
yeah,
Obviously, that's not practical, but.
Of course, always consult the county attorney before you jump into anything, but, some communities, you don't have to sign up to speak. You just, you get 10 minutes, and be up at the podium when when the person comes off, but you know, I think we run into sometimes where, oh, I forgot to sign up or something like that, and then there's always that, do you let them speak or not? So, you know, that might be a consideration to relax the sign-in requirements or something, but.
I'd like for us just to think about it. We might stay where we are, but I think it's something we ought to think about.
We can have a conversation about it.
I think you
did
can,
ask- I did talk
be
to
flexible with
Jim
it.
Bennett and ask if at some point in time that we could have a community meeting between planning and zoning and commissioners for both of us to get to know each other and to come some common ground and discuss some things. I hope that will eventually take place. Not eventually, sooner than later. Well, and if there's nothing else tonight, then I'll entertain a motion of adjournment. Motion to adjourn, second, Mr. Batt, all those in favor?